Right, so tonight we're covering a stock which we barely ever cover really, and this is Apple stock. And this is simply for the reason that the Apple event is coming up soon. It's scheduled to come out in October. The month is currently October, so you could be asking yourself, is Apple stock about to get a big price hike due to hype? And is now the perfect time to buy for a swing trade or even just to get in on the stock itself? So we're going to be talking about that in tonight's video, looking at the price, looking at the news, looking at what might come out and the effect this might have, and also just talking about the stock in general. If that does sound good, please do subscribe. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, 421 right now. We're almost halfway there. Can you just be one of those people to help us by subscribing? Quickly, just before I start the video, two more things. One, I am not a financial advisor, of course. And two, we actually now have a Discord chat room where we are going to be talking about all kinds of stocks. The more of you guys that can join, the more lively it will be, and the more of you can assist each other. So of course, if you want to join that, it's completely free, and the link is in the description or the comment section. So I hope you'll join. See you there. Right, so quick look at the stock from a price point of view. Let's look at the price section of the stock. Looking out to the one day, we are actually on the rise. Quite stable, I believe it is, because it's the weekend right now. I'm not sure if this was taken today or Friday, when it was obviously the last day of trading. But either way, we can see it was really quite a stable day. So we're having a bit of a increase towards the later part of the day, not bad at all. And of course, that's just where we're at so far. So currently we started off on the price of 115-ish, and now we're on about 117-ish. So clearly quite the increase for the stock. Not bad at all for one day, especially with such a slow growing and stable stock like Apple. 5 day, really, again, it's just quite stable. Of course, we saw lows down here that hit us around $113. Of course, we saw highs before that of around 116. Then we had a bounce back to new highs of the week. The new high of the week was on the Friday. That was, like I said, $117, and that is really where we're at so far. Well, let's have a look at how the 1 month performance of the stock is. So clearly, from around the date of, let's call it the 15th of September, we have been selling off all the way down until the 18th of September, reaching quite a big recovery here, kind of $111. This was on the 22nd of September. From there, we sold off to the point of $107, so it even went quite low at this point, and that was on the 23rd. Ever since then, really, though, we've been climbing up to where I would say it started to stable out at this point, $116 on the 1st of October. Obviously, we saw a big dip, and then quite the V-shaped recovery, and then we saw another dip to a similar point. We could say this is kind of people, hyping it up and then selling off, so obviously taking profits. And that's why they bought in at this point. But that's basically where we're at for now. Ever since then, we have seen a slow and gradual increase on the stock's value. And so far, like I said, we're almost at $120. Where is this stock going to go so far? 6 months, bear in mind, the stock split happened. But you can just see how Apple is. And this is generally how Apple is all the time, in my opinion at least. Apple's just one of those stocks. It's up there. Obviously, we know it's the richest company in the world. $2 trillion market cap, I believe it is. Yeah, so $2 trillion market cap, richest company in the world. It's just a slow growing stock which generally just goes upwards because, of course, we all know what Apple does. And if you don't know what Apple does, we're just going to talk about that very, very briefly just before we start off the video. So if you don't know what Apple does, I mean, unless you're living under a rock, I think you are going to know what this company does. But there are some aspects to the business which you might not actually know of. So a lot of people, when you say Apple, they think iPhone, and that is true. Of course, Apple do manufacture the iPhone, but they obviously do a watch, the iPad, the MacBook as well, and a few other things which people aren't aware of as much. I mean, people do actually know of them, but we're talking about the services here. So the services are things like iTunes, Apple TV. You can see them all down here, and these are incentives for people to spend more money with the company. So yes, it's true that an iPhone might last about 7 years in lucky instances with software supports like where the iPhone 5S did actually last 7 years, but how the company would make its money back in that period is by selling products via subscription, basically. So that's one way that the company makes its money, which not a lot of people are aware of. So that's very cool to know. I just thought I had to throw that one in there. So yeah, we've got an Apple business event coming up, as you might have just seen on the Apple website itself. Ignore all the adverts on cnnbusiness.com. This is edition.cnn.com if you want to know the source. But Apple is set to announce its new iPhones after weeks of delays and pandemic-related disruptions. Fair enough. And again, like I said, if you're in the tech world, you will probably know about this. Apple generally release their phones in September. Obviously, this year has been extraordinary, not in a good way, so we can understand how their product kind of might have been delayed with a lot of the things which have been going on. So fair enough to them. It's coming out now apparently on October the 13th, and they have apparently used the phrase high speed, which generally hints towards a new technology for the iPhone. Now, this is what we're talking about, and this is apparently going to be 5G. It's not confirmed, but 5G would obviously put the iPhone ahead, as a lot of phones are actually switching to 5G right now. Last year we saw the Samsung S10 5G, but having Apple switch to 5G so early would be a great thing for the company, as it would really set them apart, especially for such a big brand. So Apple aren't necessarily always the first to introduce the technology, but they do generally get more hype for it, and that could also drive the stock price up in the future. An example of this, I know that I'm talking a bit too much about the actual product itself, but sometimes we do actually need to look at the fundamentals of the business before we look at the stock price, because just looking at what the company does might actually indicate where the stock price is going to go. So yeah, back in about 2015, I think it was, Samsung introduced wireless charging. Of course, it's a very cool feature, and we all know it today. But when Apple released this on the iPhone 8, this was more of a hyped up feature, because obviously a lot more people are tuned into what Apple are doing and generally, respect it a lot more. That's unfortunate, but that's just the way it is. And things like this really can drive up the stock price, surprisingly. So Apple introducing 5G is one thing which could really help them out by setting themselves ahead, because like it says down here, Apple is somewhat late to the 5G phone game. That's like what I was just saying. Its new phone will join a growing list of options from Google, Motorola, Samsung, Huawei, and LG, and others. So obviously there are a lot of manufacturers, but let's just think about it. If you don't know what 5G really is, 5G basically is completely different to 4G in the sense that it supports a lot more things, downloads happen a lot more instantaneously, and it's just got a lot of cool technologies. Obviously, we talked about the stock price in this video, but basically, by Apple introducing this technology now, this is really something which could drive up the stock price, and especially with a new iPhone coming. Another thing about the new iPhone itself, which could potentially hint to more sales, is this year we are potentially looking at more iPhones being released. So if you don't know, in previous years, I'm just going to use the iPhone 1 to the iPhone 6, for example, or even the iPhone 5S, sorry. So the iPhone 1 to the iPhone 5S, we generally saw one model a year. So we saw the iPhone 1, the iPhone 3G, the iPhone 3GS, the iPhone 4, and obviously there was no other iPhone options. There was actually the 5C with the 5S, but we're not going to talk about that. But when the 6 came out, there was actually a 6 Plus, which means that two people who were looking for a different product could potentially buy the iPhone, as there was a smaller option and a larger option to go alongside this. In about 2017 or 16, I believe it was, when the iPhone XS came out, the iPhone XS, they actually came out with a 10R, which was a cheaper version of this phone. And of course, what that means is more people can buy the iPhone, as obviously a $1,000 phone is not catered to everybody. Of course, increasing market share means that the share price will obviously go up as company revenue goes up. And this year, we are potentially looking at 4 iPhones coming out. And of course, these would all be priced at different points competitively to basically help Apple compete with their competitors, similarly to how they released the iPhone SE2 this year. So yeah, it'll be very interesting to see what actually comes out. Anyway, I thought I'd just give you guys a quick update on this news. Tell me what you think over on the Discord server. Of course, if you want the link to the Discord server, it is in the description. If you don't want to head over there, please do check out any of the other videos which will be on the channel. Of course, they will be carded in right now or on screen. So please do subscribe as well, trying to get to 1,000. After that, thank you very much. Thank you for your time. I will see you in the next one. Goodbye for now.